Webinars like today are held for the primary purpose of advancements in our industry, which necessarily involves development of work product intended solely for the public domain. AIM has developed this policy for the protection of its members who engage in this important collaborative effort. And then a few other housekeeping notes. All participants are muted upon entering the meeting. To send a question to Leigh, select Q&A at the bottom of the webinar application. Questions will be answered at the end of her presentation. Additional questions and comments for the industry group will be addressed at the end of the survey, and a recording of the session will be available in the coming days. Next, I would like to introduce Patty Blessing. Patty is the Vice Chair on the AIM Board of Directors and also serves as the Senior Sales Manager of RFID, Retail, and Hospitality at Zebra Technologies. So with that, I will pass it off to you, Patty.
Thanks, Bethany. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thanks for joining our inaugural work group for the Women in AIDC. We're really excited to have so many of you join us today, and hope that this becomes a part of your quarter and your year as we explore and expand on the success of so many women in a very exciting market that we all are participating in today. Bethany, if you want to advance. I want to take a quick minute to recognize some very esteemed ladies who are members of the inaugural founding members of the group. Julie McGill from Trustwell, Charmene Khan from OpSmart Global, Elizabeth Sinclair, Emeritus, Jeannie Duckett from Avery Dennison, and Lydia Adams, also from Trustwell, as well as myself. Again, we're really happy to have all of you join us and look forward to the opportunity to work with you on an individual and group basis. Go ahead, Bethany. As we started, we did get together and established a mission for this group, and we feel this is very important to share this with the group and to have you understand, why and what we intend to come out of this group. We empower, connect, and advance women in AIDC by fostering leadership, innovation, and inclusion. Through networking, education, and advocacy, we create opportunities for women to thrive and drive meaningful impact in technology, business, and global supply chains. So hopefully you all see a little bit of yourself in this mission, and hopefully we can all help one another as we foster leadership, innovation, and inclusion across this organization. And with that, I am really pleased to welcome and introduce our guest speaker today, Leigh Marshall-Dow, the founder of 48 West Agency. Leigh is an accomplished marketing and growth executive with a background in the Fortune 100 and startup technical marketing, public-private partnerships, and public policy. She is passionate about seeking out new ideas and leading efforts to accelerate growth, build new businesses, and increase brand value. Leigh has a profound understanding of security and cybersecurity and introducing products that safeguard organizations against the evolving threats. Her impressive career spans over 2 decades, during which she held prominent executive and strategy roles at leading global security, defense, and critical infrastructure companies, including Identiv, Honeywell, and Intel. She is known for her ability to craft and execute marketing strategies that resonate deeply with customers in highly regulated and complex sectors. Her work has consistently driven growth, strengthened brand equity, and established industry leadership for the organizations she has served. Leigh holds an MBA specializing in technology management and a BS in geopolitical strategy. I'd also like to add that Leigh was a board member here at AIM, so we're really, really thrilled to invite Leigh to share with us for the next 15 or 20 minutes some of her thoughts on helping us to establish ourselves and promote ourselves in our work and life. Leigh?
Thank you so much, Patty. I'm going to have you follow me around everywhere I go to make me feel really good about myself. No, I really appreciate you having me here today. It's been, it's really an honor to sit on the board, and it's also an honor to be part of your kickoff event here. And it's also really inspiring to see, community come together, to connect and to share and to uplift one another in an industry that is very exciting and also very fast moving. I'm a member of a lot of different organizations of women, including Chief. And one of the things that I really love about being a part of those types of communities is that, it creates safe spaces and places to be able to have an open dialogue about the things that we experience. This isn't just a place to meet peers, but it's also an opportunity to really be seen, be heard, and really be a part of shaping, what comes next for women in this field. So thank you so much for the opportunity to connect with all of you. When I think about the landscape of women in AIDC, this is a foundational industry. It's such a big part of everything from logistics to healthcare, defense, and retail. And despite that, its growing importance, women, especially in leadership, are still kind of navigating an uphill path. But the good news is that the timing's never been better to really, break that glass ceiling. There's definitely a demand for innovative, resilient, collaborative leadership, which is quite high. And I think that, as women, that's something that we bring to the table. In my professional career, so yes, I'm the founder of an agency. I still own the agency. It's been in business for about 13 years now. And I don't work in the agency anymore, but I still get the benefit of seeing all the innovative and creative ideas that come out of the agency. And for the last few years, I've been in roles starting first as a fractional CMO and then taking on CMO full-time roles, as mentioned with Identiv, and then with a cybersecurity company called Black Cloak. And now I've been at Mattermost for about 8 months. It's been an interesting journey at Mattermost. If you're not familiar with the company, they have an open source collaboration and workflow platform that's specifically targeted to defense, intelligence, national security, and critical infrastructure, very highly regulated, very secure industries. Very similar audiences to what I experienced working at the other companies that Patty mentioned. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about today is, how to position yourself for growth, how you build really strong professional networks, how you develop really specialized skills, how you can maximize your presence through social media and other forums, and how you really can develop your executive presence, which is something I mentor a lot about, and then how to seek out leadership opportunities. And I'll just tell you some of the things that I've done throughout my career that I think early on weren't necessarily intentional, like they weren't intentional choices that I thought, oh, this is really going to position me for becoming a CMO one day, but definitely helped me get there. So I'll start with just building really strong professional networks. Your network today is probably the most important part of your career, in my opinion. I currently have a lot of open roles and I'm interviewing a lot of people, and it's interesting to see how companies less and less are open to kind of like the cold call candidate. It's risky to hire people that don't come with a cosign or an endorsement. And so your network, it does that for you. It tells you about the jobs and opportunities that aren't necessarily published. It gets your foot in the door in a sea of resumes. I mean, just for one position I have open right now, I have 250 resumes that I need to go through. And that's a pretty quick process in the days of AI. To sort of weed out. And so, you could be in that sea of candidates, and without someone saying, hey, please go look over here, you might just not get noticed. So your network really doesn't just help you find those opportunities. It completely reinforces your voice, your visibility, and your value. And it's really important to, find mentors and sponsors, to be one when you can be. And each of those connections creates a ripple effect that help shape the future for women in this space. I was actually a very early adopter of being on LinkedIn, for example. And I've met so many people in person now that I connected with on LinkedIn. So I've met them at trade shows or other places. And when I first started building out my online presence, um, I I really only connected with people that I had met before. And then over time, I loosened that up a bit and just, really wanted to connect and share and exchange ideas with people who um, are not necessarily would normally be in my professional network. But I try to take inspiration on the creative side from a lot of different industries. And then I also really think that finding mentors and sponsors is so important. I've had some amazing mentors and sponsors throughout my career. I had the very unusual opportunity at Honeywell. Every single VP that I worked for was female, which in the aerospace industry is kind of unheard of. But it just sort of happened that way. And I'm grateful to each one of them for being phenomenal mentors to me and helping guide and shape my career. Another thing is to, really develop specialized skills. You can become a go-to expert in your domain, whether it's, mobile data collection, IoT, next-gen barcode systems, also achieving certifications and continuous learning signal that you're, not just part of the field, but that you're leading it. Um, One of the reasons why I sat on the AIM board and I also sat on the IoT committee of another board is that it really allows you to have a voice in shaping policy, in shaping specifications, and positions you as being a thought leader in your field. Part of my job at Mattermost is I also manage all the government affairs and public affairs efforts. So early in my career, I worked in politics and I worked in lobbying. Um, and so I'm sort of back to those roots in this role. Um, One thing that's really important there is if you join a lot of organizations, it's not enough to join, you really have to participate. And you really have to be part of those working groups and policy groups that really help you build your network, but also help you develop those specialized skills and position you as a subject matter expert. So go get those certifications, go get the additional continuous learning, but also apply it. Apply it not just at work, but also in building out your network and building out your social footprint and sharing and exchanging ideas. Third, I would say really maximize your presence on social media. Executive presence doesn't just happen in person. It can start online. You can use platforms like LinkedIn to demonstrate your thinking, your achievements, your commitment to the industry. And people can't really endorse your value if they don't know who you are or what you bring to the table. When I started the agency, it was a happy accident. I was working at Honeywell and I just, didn't really see myself work. I've been there about 7 years and I didn't really see myself staying there. And I went to go work for Gartner for about a year. And I took the job knowing that high probability that I would get laid off because I was hired to help um, basically disposition a company that they had bought and wanted to sell. And so I knew there was a high probability I would get laid off. So I negotiated a really good severance going into the role. And I got laid off about 9 months into it. And I didn't really want to just go take any next job. I wanted to be super selective about what that role would be. And while I was on that journey, the VP of aerospace communications who had retired um, called me out of the blue and said, "Hey, I see what you're doing on LinkedIn, and I just wanted to catch up with you." And so we went to lunch, and he was like, "What the hell are you doing?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "Well, I just thought that when you left Honeywell that." I always saw you as an agency person. I always thought that maybe you'd go start your own agency. And I was like, well, I don't know why you would say that. It's something that's never occurred to me once a day in my life. And he said, well, why not? And I said, well, because I know I can do the work, but I don't know how to go get the work. And he said, well, I can teach you how to do that. So I started off just really freelancing while I was looking for my next thing. And it just, what he said to me was, Leigh, you went to this massive university, you worked for two of the biggest companies in the world, you have an extensive network that you should be able to leverage to go get the work. So like go get it. And I was like, oh, you're right. Like it hadn't really occurred to me. So I started freelancing and it just got to be too much. And so I started hiring people, and that's sort of how the agency was born. But really what got us work was me using my online presence to demonstrate I could do the work. So, writing for contributed content to other media outlets, sharing things on LinkedIn about, when I was published. And what happened was when I thought we would get a lot of strategy work, we started getting a lot of content marketing works because it's really hard to find people who can write about technology in the first place, but write about it in a way that you actually want to read it is even harder. So because I had demonstrated that online with the articles I was writing, I started getting a lot of work in that space. And then people, endorsing me, whether it's through shares and likes or commenting, they really were endorsing my value and what I brought to the table, and that's how the agency was born. So if social media didn't exist, I don't know that I would have the extensive career that I've had. I don't know that I would have grown the agency, and certainly not as quickly as we did. So really maximize your presence on social media, take advantage of it, use it in all the right ways. And also, a good rule of thumb there is for one thing that you publish, like and share and comment on 3. So endorse other people as well. Fourth, I would say, and this is the one I mentor on quite a bit, is develop your executive presence. Executive presence is how you show up, it's how you speak up, it's how you stand out. And it's confidence, clarity, credibility in your action. And it's really being prepared for the room you're in and the one that you want to be in. A lot of people suffer from imposter syndrome. I think as women, we do that to ourselves a lot. I also think that confidence is a tricky thing if you don't feel like you have it and you have that imposter syndrome, because here's the secret sauce behind confidence. Confidence comes on the other side of doing the work. Confidence, you can't just give someone confidence that they know how to do something. They have to do the work, and you have to do the work to gain that confidence. And doing that can be scary, can be risky. It can come with some failure. And if you can let go of that fear of failure, you will build that confidence, because if you fail at it, you will still learn from it. And if you succeed at it, you'll still learn from it. So either way, it's going to help you build that confidence muscle, and it's going to help you build that executive presence. I have an unnatural no fear of failure. So I probably overextend on that. But I think that, find your comfort zone for risk tolerance, and don't think about it as failure. Think about it as experimenting. You're experimenting to gain that confidence. And that's something that, as children, we do all the time usually. And as we get older, we tend to let go of it, but I would encourage you to try to get back to that. And then also, developing your executive presence, especially as a woman, it doesn't mean conforming. It means you show up as your most capable and polished and strategic self. Some of the other CMOs that I really love to interact with, one of them is Dara Tresider. She is the CMO at Autodesk. And she shows up confident, capable, polished, and truly authentic to who she really is. She dresses bold and vibrantly, and she really stands out in a crowd in that way, in a sea of, technical people, and she lives in the world of architecture. And so she really stands out, but she does it boldly, and I just think that she's a phenomena. And then part of your executive presence is, practicing really clear communication. One of the things that I learned in lobbying is how to very quickly suss out what that person on the other side of the table needs to hear from you based on how they process data. So figuring out if the person that you're trying to influence is a relationship person, if they're motivated by data, they're motivated by money, if they're influenced by power, whatever that thing is that they are influenced by, figure it out and give whatever you're trying to sell to them, give it to them in that way, so that you get the result that you're looking for. So practice really clear communication, understand, who you're communicating to. And in order to do that, you have to listen very deeply. And then when you combine your presence with performance, people will really take notice of you. And then lastly, I would say really seek out leadership opportunities. And that doesn't necessarily mean applying for, the director role or the VP role and getting it. Because most of the time you don't get those jobs until you've already demonstrated you can do that job. So volunteer for really high visibility projects. That's one. When I was at Honeywell, I did a project that was an online project that took a lot of disparate websites and domains and brought them all into one, like thousands of domain names and hundreds of websites. And when I finished that project, which I was very confident in my ability to do because it was words and pictures on sites, they came to me and they said, "Hey, you did a great job with that. Now can you please go and do that for all of our e-commerce sites?" Which was much more daunting, much more scary because that's a revenue channel, $1 billion channel. And I had this, I think, just like gumption and tenacity to say, "Sure, I'll go do it. Why not? That's a big visible project. Why not?" And I was sitting outside the VP of Supply Chain's office waiting for a meeting with him to talk about the ERP connections to the e-commerce platform. And there was this row of notebooks in a cabinet. And I started looking at the spines of the notebooks, and it was like, McKinsey, Honeywell Aerospace e-portal project, Booz Allen, Honeywell Aerospace e-commerce portal project, and on and on and on. And I started opening up these notebooks, and it was all these consultants who had, come and gone to try to do what I was trying to do, and the org charts that were in there, and I could see all the people who had been fired. And I was like, what the hell have I gotten myself into? What am I doing? But volunteering for that high visibility project completely changed my career there. And it really got me in front of executives that otherwise I would not have been. It got me, wins that demonstrated my ability to do things outside of marketing communications, and really be a business leader. Another one is to speak at events. It's if you're not a strong public speaker, if that's not something that you really feel confident doing on stage by yourself, do things like this or do panels. Panels are a great way to get into speaking and to start to build your voice. Another way is to share your wins. Your career doesn't grow in silence. It's good to have a dose of humility, but it's also okay to celebrate yourself and the things that you're working on and things that you're winning at. And if you don't share those, nobody else will probably do it for you. So humility is good, but you don't have to be overly humble. And then when you're the only woman in the room, that's really your moment to lead by example. I often, over my career, have found myself the only woman at the table. And instead of being intimidated by it or, not speaking up, I think I've learned how to overcome some of the things that often happen when you are the only woman at the table. Sometimes people will try to talk over you or try to repeat your idea. I think we've all experienced that. And so I've learned some little tips and tricks for how to sort of put that back in its place and take up the space that I earned. So if you have a seat at the table, it's because you've earned it. And now it's your responsibility to own it. So for this group, I mean, I think this is your starting point. I think that, if you really learn to lean into those 5 things that I just listed, I think that you can make some really big, bold moves in your career. So at the end of the day, I really think building your career is more than just your resume. It's about your relationships. It's about building your presence and your reputation and demonstrating your readiness to lead. And whether you're just getting started, whether you're ready to move on to, your next move, just, own your space, invest in your voice, and always show up like you belong because you do. With that, Patty, I'll kick it back to you.
Thank you, Leigh. I think we want to, Bethany, do we want to open it up for some questions now?
Yeah, so we can open up for some questions. If anybody has any questions, they can fill it in the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen.
While we're letting people respond, Leigh, thanks so much for your your experience, your vulnerability. I think that's really important that we all recognize that this is no matter what you do, there are challenges, there are ups and downs, and how do you turn those downs into positives, and how do you leverage the positives as well. So we really appreciate your vulnerability and transparency because I think we all can find little stories there that can help us.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, Bethany, do we have questions?
No questions have come in yet. Let me see. All right, we have one question here. Is the best way to connect with you, Leigh, is through LinkedIn?
Oh yeah, definitely. And like I said, I also participate in a lot of other women's forums. So if you have questions about those, one that has been pleasantly surprising for me, because I've joined quite a few over the years, and some, it's like, oh, it's not really an active community, but the Chief Network has been amazing. It's one of the few that I've joined where, women actually like respond to you right away. I've invited, women from Chief to events and things, and they actually show up. Um, the groups that meet and the activities that they do are very enriching. And then the other ones, I'm in marketing, so I, participate in a lot of different marketing organizations too. MMA is one that I've recently started working with that I really like because they collaborate on solving for some marketing challenges, which has been really helpful to me. And then the other thing that I know a lot of people communicate professionally on LinkedIn, but there's actually a lot of Slack groups that like I participate in the Sixth Sense CMO Slack group. I participate in the Cybersecurity Marketing Society Slack group. And those have been really beneficial to my career as well. I found great talent there and to hire and just different ideas about events that we're going to and all kinds of things that have been really helpful. So not just LinkedIn, but seek out those kinds of things too. Oh, I like this question, the tips and tricks about when I'm the only woman in the room. So I know not all of you are on camera, but raise your hand if you've been mansplained or manpeated. Yeah, especially in tech. So here's a great example of a time when that happened to me. I was at a trade show. It was actually I was at HIMSS, and I was at a lunch with a VP of sales, uh, uh, a chief, myself, head of marketing, and then three customers, and all men. Um, and they started to talk about, and it was RFID that we were talking about, and they started to talk about an RFID technology, and the salesperson turns to me in the conversation in front of the customer and says, "Sorry if it's getting too technical." I was like, time out. Don't we all work at the same company that does this? And am I not your superior? And also, have I not worked for technology companies my entire career? Oh, and don't I have an MBA in technology management? Like, what the hell? What are you saying to me? Um, isn't it my job to take this too technical information and turn it into something people can understand? That's literally my job. Um, and so what I said to him, I turned to him and I said, oh, no, no, no. It's not over my head, but if we need to slow it down for you, we can. Um, another time that this has happened to me with like the man peating, where it's like you put an idea out there and nobody really says anything, and then a couple minutes later, somebody at the end of the table says the same thing, and everybody's like, yeah. What I've learned to do with that is say, oh, I'm so excited that you've co-signed on my idea. Can you tell me how you would execute that? And the reason for that second question, that question of can you tell me how you would execute on that, is because it's not their idea, so they've never thought about it, so they cannot do that. they probably won't be able to answer that question. So that is a great way to kind of set that back where it needs to be. And then I think that I would encourage you to observe how men take up space. Most men do that quite naturally. They'll even do it physically, right? They'll come into a space, they'll stretch themselves out, and I'm not suggesting that you need to do that. And again, I'm not asking you to conform because I would never do that. But there are ways for you to equally take up space without having to do it physically. One of the things that I like to do is, especially if I'm in a newer environment, is to listen and only speak after I think people are done. Because if you're last, you're first in that scenario. And also for me, once you get into leadership roles where you are like for me, I'm the chief, or if you're a subject matter expert, even if you don't have the fancy title, when you weigh in, you can shut down the conversation. So the more senior you are, what you'll notice is when you start to speak and when you weigh in on a topic, everyone else just kind of like turtles. They just retreat and they're like, well, she's the subject matter expert or she's the chief, so that's the way it is. And I don't want that. I want people to express ideas and opinions and collaborate. So I try to choose my moments of when I speak. And I also really marketing is a tricky role in a tech company because everyone thinks they do marketing and that they're good at it, and most of the time they're not. And most of the time they're not creatives. And so I have to, find ways to help people understand that I appreciate their ideas, but I'm not necessarily going to use them. And that's always tricky in a tech company. But what I try to do is live most of my day in my analytic side of my job, and then the creative stuff I sort of do in my downtime. And that's the only way I can manage separating them in my brain. It's too hard to do them at the same time. I can't be super creative if I'm thinking about the metrics.
All right.
Oh, resources, books, podcasts, strategies for overcoming imposter syndrome. Yes. These might sound weird. One of them is Bethany Frankel, her Just Be podcast, where she talks to a lot of women about the companies that they've built and the brands. She focuses more on the brand building, but the brands that they've built and how. And in quite a few of those, she talks to them about imposter syndrome and strategies and things like that. I also read a lot of like sounds cheesy, but like The Art of War, The 40 Rules of Power. Those are all great books. One of my favorite 40 Rules of Power is if you shoot the shepherd, the sheep will scatter. So there's some really good tricks in that 40 Rules of Power that you can leverage to sort of, get your seat of power or control over a situation that you need to. Also, imposter syndrome, therapy probably helps quite a bit. A lot of self-reflection. And I'm not like really big on like self-help guru kind of books and things like that. I try to read more. I take a lot of my inspiration from the sports world. I worked in professional sports for a hot minute, and I learned a lot. The company that I worked for is a human performance company, so they train professional athletes, but they also train executives. That side of their business is called Tignum, and Tignum has some really great resources for how to perform consistently every day. Perform at a very high level consistently every day, and practicing that will help you overcome that imposter syndrome. And then the other thing that really helps with that is, again, maybe reading more about fear of failure. I don't really use the F word. I use the experiment word because that's really what you're doing. You're experimenting with ideas. I mean, most of us are not carrying organs in a cooler in our job, so a little bit of failure is okay. and your confidence will come from that. So reading maybe more about that, and there's plenty of podcasts that talk about that and imposter syndrome. Um, and then also Alex Cooper, her podcast has a lot of interesting people, a lot of interesting women on there, very high profile, very high performing women who talk about their own journey and their own experience. So those are a little outside the business world, but I find them more interesting, to be honest.
Thank you, Leigh. That was fabulous. I hope everyone enjoyed Leigh's journey, and we appreciate you taking some of those questions, and hope that everyone enjoys some of those podcasts and recommendations. Bethany, do you want to go ahead and take us to the next step?
Yeah, so the next thing we will be doing is a quick survey of the audience. Let me pull that up real quick. So it should be live on your screen now. We need your feedback to help create content that will resonate to women in our industry. So if you could please answer the 6 questions that are up on your screen now. Remember to please scroll all the way down to answer each one before you submit. Questions 5 and 6 are optional, but answering all of them will provide us with more valuable feedback. So we'll give a couple minutes here for everybody to fill that out.
Okay.
Answers in. And then while you guys are all filling that out, I was just going to talk a little.
Most of the founding members will be at the AIM Summit, the RFID Journal Live, and GS1 Connect. So if this is your, if you're interested, let us know, and we will definitely make connections, plan to make connections at those events. We appreciate your feedback to the survey. It'll help us as we plan upcoming events and meetings. All right, Bethany, can we?
Yeah, so I'm going to end the poll here and you guys can see the results. And then we'll do a better analysis of them and then share them with them after this meeting is over.
Great.
All right, and so if anybody had anything they wanted to discuss, we can open the floor for discussion. If you want to speak, please just raise your hand. We can open your mic to speak.
Hi, Jane. Go ahead.
Hi, good morning. This is Jane Yallum. I have been in the automatic identification industry since 1985, and no, I'm not 90 yet, but I'm getting close. Anyway, I'm just very unity. I would like to be a little more informed of who else is here.
That is a great question, Jane, and we appreciate it. We did, Bethany, can we share the list of attendees?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay. Thank you very much.
And thanks for your contributions, Jane. You're definitely not 90. You're a vital part of our organization.
Thank you, Patty.
Any other questions or comments?
Can I make a comment while we wait for somebody in the
Sure.
Thank you for that amazing talk. Pull yourself and go, okay, lesson learned, moving forward and just move forward because you gain so much by it. And so I appreciate you saying, well, this was not the best, or, then I got up and then I did this. So I just thought it was amazing. Thank you so much. It was very inspirational.
Of course, I certainly have had my fair share of failures. I even had a project at Intel where I thought I had completely kicked ass and done an amazing job. And the GM, called me to said she wanted to talk to me about it. And I was like, oh, this is so great. And went to go meet with her. And, her response to me was, yeah, you got the job done. But look at all the dead bodies you left that I have to go clean up. Like, that's not okay. So it was a really, really big lesson on, you have to, be able to be tough and to be, quick without damaging relationships. So I learned a lot from that failure. Even though ultimately the project was successful, I was not.
It depends on the scale, right? If you don't know the scale, then don't know what they're measuring, then you don't know what to kind of deliver in a way too.
Do you know what? That's actually a really good point. Something to really look out for when you're at a company or you're interviewing is ask them, and men are most often measured on performance. So when I was at Honeywell, we had 12 behaviors that we were supposed to be exceptional at. 12. Nobody's perfect at 12, ever. But knowing that women are usually more heavily viewed for their behavior rather than their performance, then you have to know what to do with that equation.
Okay. There's no more questions or comments. Go ahead, Bethany.
Great. So if you have not signed up yet to be part of this group, we encourage you to still sign up today. You can sign up by using the QR code on the screen or by visiting our website and clicking on the Women of AIDC page at the top, or you could simply reach out to me at bethany@aimglobal.org, and I would be happy to sign you up as well. And then any other questions, you can reach out to us at info@aimglobal. And thank you everyone for joining us today. Do you have anything else to add, Patty?
No, we will be publishing the next meeting. Our plans are to meet quarterly. So we will be publishing the next meeting shortly and look forward to seeing you at those events and as well at the next webinar. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.